When he came home from shenanigans about 10 o'clock, Bobby found the DVD taped to the window on his back door. The house was dark and Melanie's car wasn't home. He ripped the DVD off, walked into the kitchen, tossed it onto the table, and opened the refrigerator door. Pulling out a bottle of Bud, he twisted off the cap and threw it across the room. He missed the kitchen trash container, cursed, and left it lying on the floor. God! She left the dishes sitting in the sink. She knows I hate that shit. Bobby took a long tug on the bottle. The past 24 hours had been good to him. He belched when he came up for air. He looked at the bottle in his hands and wondered again where Melanie was. Who cares? He smiled as he remembered how he finally with Shirley last night. He'd been working on her for a week while her boyfriend, Anders, was up north in Duluth. Maybe he'd been a little aggressive, but women never meant no when they said it. Besides, both of them had been drinking for a couple of hours and she wasn't likely to tell Anders anyway. She definitely enjoyed it while they were doing it, that's for sure. He rubbed his chin as he flashed on the women he had played with in the past year. His buddies at the bar knew most of them. He'd told M. There's no sense seducing women if no one knew about it. Said it was his talent, and what good is talent if no one knew you had it? Bobby upended his Bud. He started thinking again how everyone bought him a beer tonight. When they did, they tipped their bottles toward him in a long-neck salute from across the room. There was always a full bottle in front of him. What's up with that? He pulled another Bud out of the fridge and picked up the DVD before going into the living room. He popped it into the player and plopped himself into the recliner. Twisting the top off his second Bud, he flung it across the room in disgust. Melanie's face filled the TV screen. Her green eyes sparkled, her hair was slightly disheveled. She looked into the camera and smiled. Hi, honey. If you are watching this, then you are home and wondering where I am and what I did today. Today I made this video for you. Took me all day, too. I asked some of your friends to help me. I told them you'd appreciate it if they bought you a beer tonight, you know, as a way of saying thank you for helping me. Melanie paused. She could have been a ringer for Meg Ryan if she cut her hair differently. Plenty of people had told her that. Of course, Melanie had green eyes and Meg's were blue, but still the resemblance was remarkable. Bobby could see Melanie looked a bit flushed as she pulled a wisp of hair away from her face. She was a little out of breath. You could see it. She seemed happy though. She rolled her eyes upward and a breathy few escaped her lips. She smiled again. She looked fine, but there was jerkiness to the video as if she was being bounced around. She kind of looked like she might be out on Quarry Road. It was pretty bumpy out there. Hope you like my video. The screen faded to black and then lightened again. The inside of Bobby's favorite bar, Shenanigans, appeared. 3 of his friends who bought him beers tonight were standing at the bar facing the camera. Other people could be seen on the edges of the bar. It was quiet. Melanie strode on camera wearing a yellow tube top, Daisy Dukes, and her only pair of high heels. They were white. She walked to the left side of the men and stood there. She looked hot. She always looked hot. The camera turned to center her in the picture and a few more men could be seen at the tall tables on the one side. Melanie stood next to Big John. To the right on the screen was Billy and Brad. All 3 had the Minnesota lumberjack look, beards, plaid shirts, blue jeans, and work boots. Each had a ball cap, too, with a steel chainsaw emblem. Every man worth his plaid had one. Steel saws were at the top of the preferred chainsaw list, but you just weren't educated, or a man, in Minnesota unless you knew about limbering, brushing, slashing, bucking, and felling a tree. Hi, Bobby. Remember when you were caught kissing that girl outside the bowling alley? We'd been dating about 2 months. Do you remember what you said to me when I was so angry with you? You said, honey, it's just a kiss. I wasn't cheating on you. Kissing's not the same as cheating. If I'd known you'd get upset, I'd a never kissed her. I swear to you, I'll never kiss another woman. I was so mad at you, but you were so cute. I loved you, Bobby, so I believed you and we got back together. She continued, I want you to know that what I am about to do is not cheating. You said so. Remember? You have good friends, Bobby, and they all agreed to help me with this. Melanie turned and wrapped her arms around Big John. She had to stand on her tiptoes to kiss him on the lips. Big John kissed her back. The bar noise in the background was full of catcalls and whistles. What the hell? What's gotten into her? And what the hell is John doing? Bobby sat there with his beer in hand and stared open-mouthed at the screen. Melanie let go of John and moved on to Billy Green. About 5 years ago, Billy had been a football player at the local college, but now he was scoring a kiss with Melanie. Bobby clenched. He raised his arm to throw his butt against the far wall. What is this? He stopped himself. Aloud Bobby said, no sense wasting this. He took another gulp. Brad was the youngest of the three and he did his best to impress Melanie. He gave her an intense and passionate kiss. When she finally broke away from Brad, she fanned her face with one hand. The crowd was clapping but settled down quickly as she started to speak. Phew. Brad, you sure know how to kiss a woman. I'm surprised you're not married yet. Brad gave Melanie an "ah shucks" smile about a mile wide and blushed. Melanie turned to the camera again. Bobby, honey, I know you might be upset but remember none of this is cheating. You said it wasn't. I believed you then and I guess I believe you now, too. As good as these kisses were, it's not cheating. The TV screen faded to black. Bobby was angry. How could she embarrass herself? How could she embarrass me? What is wrong with her? How could she do this to me? Bobby pursed his lips. A hard look came into his eyes. There's gonna be to pay. No wife of mine is gonna kiss other men and get away with it. Maybe it's time I find her and drag her home. Bobby rose from the chair just as the TV screen came to life again. Melanie was standing in the middle of the three men. They all had shit-eating grins on their faces as if they knew what was going to happen next. What are you up to, Mel? Melanie looked into the camera. Still with me, Bobby? I hope so. You're gonna like this next part. Do you remember when your cousin and her girlfriend came to the family reunion at the beach club 2 years ago? I'm sure you do, 'cause that's when I found you behind the concession stand with your hands inside that girl's blouse. You remember that, don't you, Bobby? I didn't say a word. I walked up and slapped you as hard as I could, then I started to walk home. She carried on, you followed in your truck with the window rolled down, and you were telling me how she came on to you, and that it was no big deal, and you're a man and if some woman offers to give you some touchy-feely that you just got to do it. Remember that? You said it wasn't a big deal and if a woman seems open to a little touchy-feely, you just can't blame a man for taking advantage of it. Remember that? I do. But I loved you, Bobby, and I forgave you. Melanie paused and glanced back at the men before continuing. So now we both know that it ain't gonna be a big deal to you and you ain't gonna blame your friends about this next part. Bobby turned several shades of purple as his anger grew. He would never live this down. Not ever. He could never go back to this bar again. Bobby gulped the last of the bud and threw the bottle across the room into the kitchen. It shattered against the table and broken glass splattered everywhere. Bobby seethed. He leaned forward in his chair. The bar crowd clapped and cheered, and began to chant Melanie's name over and over as the TV screen faded to black. Bobby stood, strode to the kitchen doorway, and smashed his fist into the wall. The gypsum board crumpled under his blow. He was damn lucky there wasn't a stud there, he realized that immediately and didn't hit it a second time. Stomping his way to the refrigerator, his work boots crunched the brown glass covering the floor. He helped himself to his third beer in 20 minutes. Melanie's voice came from the TV and it made him run back into the living room. Her face was full screen. Bobby reversed the DVD until it went black, then pressed play so he could hear what Melanie was prattling about. The screen faded into Melanie's face. Her face bounced a little and she rolled her eyes up and toward the ceiling. She bit her lower lip before getting herself under control. "Bobby, you should know that your 3 best friends would not help me with this next part. I asked them, too, but they said it wouldn't be right. They did promise not to tell you anything until you saw this video. I hope that's true. When your best friends wouldn't help me, I had to find a couple of other men to help me out. It's time you know who they are. Jody." Jody turned the camera to the mirror to show that he was the camera operator. "You know Jody Walker, don't you, honey? He's Amber's dad. Did you know that he has his own audiovisual company and rents equipment to corporate meetings at hotels? I called him and he said he'd be happy to help me out with this part. Imagine that." Jody gave Bobby a middle finger salute. Bobby got the message and pursed his lips. "And, Jody, honey, could you turn the camera back to my face and then, when I tell you, widen the view?" Jody turned the camera back to Melanie's face and centered her on the screen. Melanie continued, "I heard about Amber and Shirley early this morning, Bobby. You had quite the day yesterday, didn't you? Can't keep something like that quiet around here, know what I mean? I knew that if I confronted you, you'd tell me something about how you didn't think it was cheating. You need an education, Bobby, so I made this tape to show you exactly what cheating is." She said, "Widen that camera view now, Jody, and let's show Bobby what cheating is. This is what cheating looks like, Bobby. When I called, Anders said he was happy to help make this video. I hope you don't hold it against him. It was my idea. Oh, by the way, you should also know that I promised Jody that if he edited the video for me, he and I would show you other positions that count as cheating. This is why I'm not home right now. We are making a sequel as you are watching this one." She continued, "I asked all the men at the bar to buy you a beer tonight. I said they should thank you for being a good friend who had an understanding wife. I said you might need a couple of beers in you when looking at this training video I made. Look for part 2 in the morning. You'll find it in the same place you found this one." Melanie paused, smiled, and looked back at Anders. "Anders, honey, it's time to take me to Valhalla. I need that hard Norwegian wood to get me there. Let's show Bobby what cheating really looks like. Jody, be sure to get all the best parts on video for Bobby's friends. I promised them a copy. Goodbye, Bobby." The screen faded to black and Bobby's once good life did the same.